we're just gonna rock and roll. Okay. So if you pull that mic right, we can pull it across here, Mark.
Great.
It's no problem. Let me just pull this wiring out a bit. There you go. You should be able to reach across there, my man.
Yep, no worries.
And I think we're all good, mate. We're recording. The audio is on. The video is on.
Great.
So you're looking dapper, bro.
Thank you very much.
I wish I'd have made a bit more of an effort now.
Oh, you have. You got a nice green, looks like lamb's wool jumper.
Well, people keep telling me that when I wear green, it suits me. So green's my colour at the minute.
Yeah, I think I love green. Blue and green are my brand colours anyway. So,
are they? Yeah.
In fact, very similar. Not too dissimilar to the Better Man colours, which
Get
is
your
interesting.
face stuck into that, mate.
Get my stuck right in. Okay.
Yeah, mate. I'm one of these guys. I if you go through my wardrobe, I got the same kind of shit. I got like the same like dark jumpers, navy, green, black, and then jeans.
Yeah.
And fuck loads of t-shirts.
It's those winter tones.
I love winter clothes, man.
Yeah.
I got. This is my embarrassing thing. I've got 24 at last count jackets.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, how many jackets can you wear, man? And I thought I wasn't materialistic, but with clothes, I still am.
I think it's really interesting with clothes because even when I'm, say, doing a podcast myself, like I'll still put cologne on, even though the guests can't see me. I'll still like dress because I feel like it says to my mind, this is a game. That
makes sense. Do you know who Lex Friedman is?
No, I don't.
I'm surprised because he's got quite a big podcast. It's
okay.
Catching up with Joe Rogan, actually.
Okay.
He puts a suit on every day, even if he's working from home. Because like he said, it's a bit like a uniform, like an outfit, you know, like a superhero costume. It's like, right, it's time to work.
Yeah.
And putting on this suit represents that.
Yeah, I think for me it is. It's just anything that you can tell your mind that puts you into that frame of, right, this is me being switched on, intentional, present, conscious. Like for me, that's why it really is interesting for me in terms of when I put a jacket on, this is when I'm taking this seriously. I want to do it with heart, and it's not so much actually how I'm coming across in terms of how I look, but actually it's about my energy of how now my energy kind of like meets that point of consciousness. Yeah,
sure, makes sense. I think there's various elements that I do that in terms of like even training. There's playlists that I go to that once you hear that song, boom, you switch on. Do you know what I mean? It's time to work out, that kind of thing. The looking good though is important to me. Again, I've tried to move away from this, but actually if I look, or at least I feel like I look good, I kind of do feel better for it. So just like you say, that effort to put your aftershave on, to brush your teeth really well, to do your mouthwash, deodorant, look good, clean clothes. I think it does have an impact on your energy and what you give out and what you put out. At least in my case, it does.
No, I'd agree with that. I think women actually have it harder there because I think I've known a lot of girls that take pride in their appearance, and they'll say, you know, Matt, don't you think I'm a bit vain? And actually, I don't. I actually think, you know, you just care about how you look, which I think, you know, we're all kind of an advert for how we feel on the inside by what we articulate on the outside, you know, and for me it's like really important to be able to feel good, and if taking care of yourself makes you feel that, because everything's about energy. So if you can really put yourself into that space of, all right, let's just take every opportunity, you know, we've all got one body, so we either abuse it or we take care of it, and we either make it work for us or we work against it. And it's important, isn't it? This self-love and this self-care is a massive like community of people that are really engaging with like the need and the essence of self-love, which I think is just another expression of that.
Sure, man. And let's face it, for a guy to look half decent, present himself, it takes 15 minutes. Like get in the shower, put some decent deodorant on, and put some half decent clothes on. Women, this is a different game. It's like they have to put so much more effort into the whole makeup and hair and thing. I'm glad I don't have to do any of that shit.
Same.
So us guys have got it easy on that front, and there's no excuse. And your book talks about this brilliantly. Let's Mark of a Man. That's your latest book. I've got Inside Job, which I believe was your second book.
That's my first one.
Oh, that was your first. Plot Twist was your second.
That's right.
So thank you for bringing that. I'm going to have a good read of that. I've read Mark of a Man, and it talks a lot about working from the inside out. It's a common theme throughout, as is personal self-responsibility. I think this is the biggest thing I've learned about self-development. It really is all about you taking ownership and responsibility for not the things that happen, but how you handle and respond to the things that happen in your life. because I think some self-help books set up this, they give us this false pretense that we can control things that are going to happen in our life, and we can make these beautiful plans and everything works out. And it's very rare, well, in my experience and the guys I coach, it very rarely happens like that. So it becomes more about how do you handle things that come up in life when life is so uncertain. And I think your book talks about that really well.
Yeah, thank you. I think, as much as people love like law of attraction, right, and as much as I like to set the intention and believe good things are going to happen, I also think that sometimes people fall into passivity with it, because it's almost like, if I just say I'm going to, have a Tesla by the age of 30 and just keep saying it and kind of manifesting, like visualizing it, for me, it's like too passive. It can't just be about, this is what I want for my life. You actually have to own, and you have to be proactive in your actions towards creating that. Like, what do I need to do in order to bring like a Tesla into my life where I can afford that, and what do I need to do to kind of be of service and contribution, and what skill do I need to have in order to benefit from the marketplace paying for that skill. So for me, I think for me, when I talk about taking responsibility, we've all been put on this planet and none of us chose to be here, which I think is a really interesting one, Alex, because none of us chose to be here. Our parents chose, and if we've got children, we just chose for them. And so that's why I take parenting seriously, because my children didn't decide to be here, me and their mum did, and so I have a responsibility to nurture them and breathe life into them. And it's I think that's really important too, that, that we do take responsibility for our choices. I think Jim Rohn says it beautifully when he says the wind blows on us all, but it's the setting of the sail that actually determines where we end up in life. And look, we all get tossed by life's curveballs. I've always said that life is a mosaic of the beautiful and the brutal and everything in between, and it's really how you deal with those challenges. That's really the kicker.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic of conversation. You're right. We didn't ask to be here, and I think some people can take that and it can really damage them, because they can say, "Yeah, I didn't ask for this. I don't want it." I think that's where the trouble lays, and I think I've experienced that when I'm at my very worst. I'm like, well, I didn't ask for any of this shit, Why do I have to deal with it? What the fuck is this all about? It's going to end in 80 years. Why do I have to go through it? And I think that can lead down such negative rabbit holes, and I think there's only so much analysing you can do, because I think the more analysing I've done, the more fearful I become, because you start to see things and that might not be that helpful, regardless of the truth that lays behind them. So I think, for me anyway, I probably enjoyed life more when I don't question it too much. But then again, you don't want to live a life where you don't stop and reflect and question what you're doing. So, like everything, there's a sweet point, isn't there? It's like, yeah, you want to live your life, but you don't want to live it aimlessly, but you don't want to analyse the shit out of it either.
Yeah, which is exactly what my latest article for Entrepreneur was about stop over analysing and finding the sweet spot. Because I'm guilty of, analysing, and I love the power of reflection. I think your ability to reflect is the best tool for personal development and growth. Your ability to just see how you performed, how you came across. But I agree with you that sometimes if we're too far ahead in the future, that's where anxiety lives. Anxiety lives in tomorrow, whereas peace lives in the right now. Like right now, me and you are warm. We're in a lovely studio. We're having a lovely conversation. I've got a peppermint tea. You've got some other tea.
Green tea.
Yeah, green tea, and, when we draw into the presence, we can really enjoy the moment. And there is definitely something to be said of that. But I always find that not thinking too far ahead, people talk about the 10, the 5, the 3-year goals. For me, the magic's in the 12 months. It's not thinking too far ahead, but having some kind of mind and eye on the horizon. But fundamentally, I do think that, all we know that we have is right now, which is why, as you said, let's enjoy these moments, and not kind of get lost in fear of, what may happen. We spend a lot of energy, don't we, on the ifs and the buts.
Yeah, and I think there's an argument that sometimes spent, like you used the word reflection, it's what makes us special as a species. We can reflect. We've got a consciousness that allows us to look back and for that to determine how we move forward. So it's a sensible thing to do, I think, reflection, but as long as I think it shapes you going forward, It's like, well, how much time do you need to spend in the past? How much time, how much of your life should you analyse? Because it can be helpful, but it can also be a bit of a hindrance if it doesn't change anything going forward. So our mistakes, for example, are a good example of this. We have to reflect on them, don't we? Not live there, but learn some lessons from them. But then the key is because again, people always say you got to learn from your mistakes, but most of us make the same mistakes over and over again. So it's having the ability to draw the lessons and then implement them instantly as well, not just in a thought process. But I think if you take a look at your actions and say, what can I actively do to take the lessons from the past and move forward with it?
Yeah, I mean, I love how John Maxwell says, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
Mm.
And if there is a repeated theme where we constantly, life keeps showing us the same problem, it will keep showing us that same problem until we actually do learn that lesson. I mean, that's the whole point of evolution and growth, is like, I'll just talk vulnerably about something that I find a challenge and I've been working through, which is a fear of blood. So when I was 2, my mum chopped my finger off in the door and it was hanging off by a bit of thread, and you can see it's pretty funky, my finger.
Oh, it's mashed up,
Yeah, it's mashed up. So it was literally hanging off by a bit of thread, and they said that I wouldn't really feel anything in that, but I do. But anyway, my mum was traumatized, blood everywhere. And so this is where I've identified my fear of blood to come from. And so, even now at 41, when I have a blood test or a vaccine, I need to lie down just to make sure, because, I know that, I've got periods of where I've fainted, like grown man, not rational. Of course, if you stick a needle in me, blood's going to come out. We're made of blood, right? So it's so funny how sometimes things aren't even logical, and yet they're a challenge, but each time I kind of expose myself to this, it's becoming less and less. So actually, last 3 times I've had a blood test, I've been fine. I have a smelly pen. I listen to music that's calming. So I do everything that kind of is like a toolkit to try and deal. So it doesn't necessarily go completely away, but how I manage it is what improves. And often they say, the problem hasn't gone. It's just that I've grown bigger than the problem, which is what is exciting about personal growth and development. You can still struggle, you can still have fear, you can still not enjoy it, but you do it. You show up. You just have to show up scared, or you show up and do it without any class. That's kind of where I'm at. I do it. I don't do it with much class. I'm sure people are quite humorized, by the fact that there's a grown man who can speak in front of thousands of people, but actually gets really wimpy with, and it's not even like the pain, it is literally, I'm having to tell the 2-year-old Mark, you're safe.
Sure, man. Yeah, fear's irrational sometimes, but yeah, there's only one way to overcome fear, and like you say, it's not going to be diminished, or you're not going to destroy fear. It's having the ability to stand in front of it, and for me, it's always been about gaining more courage. It's not. You can't live your life wanting to eradicate fear, because what you do is you go, well, I'm not going to do anything that scares me. And that's when your life shrinks, right? And you can play that game. I played that game for many years, so you miss out on things, not because you don't want to do them, but because you're scared to do them. So Jordan Peterson always says there's only one way to condition yourself, and that's you can either jump in at the deep end or slowly, but the outcome needs to be the same. You step in front, you condition yourself to some fear. So you do something that scares you a tiny bit today, and then eventually over time you become someone who's braver. You don't try and eliminate the things that scare you. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. It's game over if you do that. Your world is your house, and you stay there, and you don't enjoy life, and you don't explore, and you don't do the things that you really want to pursue. Because behind those things is an element of fear and resistance, isn't it?
Yep.
It's like writing a book, for example.
Yeah.
It's fear behind it.
Yeah.
Standing on stage. All the things that you might class as your highlights in life, behind them is a lot of fucking fear. And if you didn't face that fear, you wouldn't have any of this good stuff. You wouldn't hold this book in your hands now. You wouldn't have it. So you have to get past that. And I think just understanding that's quite helpful.
It is. And I think the first thing that we have to understand, like when it comes to especially overcoming fear or being courageous or brave, which for me are really like at the center of 2023 already, just being brave, is the first step is you have to commit to the decision. So that's what's actually the most helpful, but also the most important for me, is if I'm going to go have a blood test, I've got to commit that I'm having the blood test. So regardless of how I do, I've made that commitment, and we have to make that choice first mentally.
So this means you remove, I might go and have a blood test. I think I should go and have a blood test. I'm going to try to go. You go, I'm having a blood test, or I'm not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then from that actually then starts to unfold a bit of a puzzle. But your mind deals better when it's clear, when it's got a directive.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And actually, you actually do feel like a surge of like energy. Like I feel it. Like when I say, you know, I am going to do this, it's empowering. It's not disempowering, because when you vow to do something, your mind and body then have to kind of join forces and say, right, we're doing this.
Yeah, it's a commitment for sure. And again, I don't want to beat on guys here, but I see so many guys now using language like, I think, I'll try, I might, and it's sitting on the fence talk, and they sit on that fucking fence for years, you know. And it's a terrible place to be, because you've got your ambitions and your intentions are on that better thing, but your actions suggest otherwise. So you sit in this miserable place in the middle where you do neither. You know, you don't go all in, but you're still thinking about it, so you haven't moved on. So it's like, it's so much better just to make a decision and go with it, even if it's one that doesn't work out, or if it results in what you classify as failure, whatever. I think it's better just to go after it, learn, move on, and live your life that way. Because it was that lifestyle that up until I was around 22, 23, I was terrified to do anything, Mark. Honestly, I couldn't even get on like the bus or a train. I don't know. The fear was just overwhelming, and my life was so shit, to the point where I was offered beta blockers when I was like 15, 16 by the doctor to slow my heart rate down. That was his solution. And that's when I thought, you know what, fuck this, man. I shouldn't be taking these pills at 15, 16 to slow my heart rate down, because I'm scared. So I had to train myself how to become braver, which was terrifying, by the way, to the point where I was sitting on the toilet like 12 times a day because my stomach was in bits. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So I understand probably a lot more than most about the importance of building some courage, because it makes your life better.
It does, and I think you're touching on, I mean, we all know that the power of the mind, right? So the truth we give a thought or a narrative that we play out, we have the mind to body like steer, don't we? So when you think something's going to go wrong, you then feel it physiologically in your tummy, like, you know, in your sense, you were saying, you know, going to go to the bathroom, like, and so there's a story that's playing out in your head that is saying something's going to happen, or you're not safe or something, and then you don't feel safe, you don't have peace. That's why the work that we both do in different ways is all about actually fine-tuning this brain, because it'll either serve us or it'll destroy us, and we have to wage war sometimes with what we think. And I've hurt myself in the past by telling myself a narrative because of somebody else's behavior, thinking I'm not lovable enough, or I'm forgettable because they haven't returned my messages, or they haven't checked in on me, or whatever that is. And then I actually hurt myself, and actually it's got nothing to do with me. It's about them. It's actually about their issue, their junk, their trauma, you know. And so it is really important that we do keep checking our thought life, and we do listen to what are the things that we say about ourselves, you know, and are these helpful and are these true? Because they will always cause a physiological response. So I think that there's a lot there to be said as well around that.
Definitely. And my angle with a lot of the men is through the art of physical health, you know, because I think physiologically it helps promote a healthy response inside of the body. Therefore, you're more likely to make better decisions and think more clearly. So I know that some of my best planning or decisions have been made after like climbing up a mountain where my phone's away for 6 hours and I'm in the fresh air and I've done something physically demanding. I feel at a much better level to make decisions from at that point. So I agree totally. Definitely mind, you know, you have to work on that. But I think for a lot of guys, they can get to that state through the art of physical work and also through eliminating certain distractions in their life. So I think what a lot of us are guilty of is we have our head in our phone, therefore it stops us from ever addressing what thoughts are going through our head, because we don't have to, because we've got this entertainment in front of us.
Yeah.
If you take that away from a person, it leaves them with time to think, and people don't like time to think, because it's a scary place to be, isn't it, sometimes, when you're thinking, or sometimes you're not living the life you want to live, and distraction can take you away from thinking about that and potentially doing something about it, because doing something about it is fucking scary. So it's easier to live in the world of social media and Netflix.
Yeah, it is difficult because of the fact that we can't escape ourselves. We literally are with ourselves 24/7, right? And actually sometimes, even though we're surrounded by people, there is a sense that we feel lonely in our body and even in our mind, because nobody else has access to our mind or to our body the way that we do. So the importance of having a solid relationship with self is so key. And when you're talking about exercise, and having an environment like that of getting out there and actually, especially when I felt anxious, when I've got taken to the streets and I've ran, I've gone out and done my 5K, man, I do feel so much better. I have more energy. Your mind does fall into alpha state, which is why when you're up a mountain or in a shower, we tap into our more creative ideas and problem solving, because you can't solve any problem in a stress state. You have to be out of your own head, which is what I find really liberating about when I play football. I literally can't have my phone. There's no other distractions. I'm just engrossed in trying to get this ball into the net and stopping it going into mine, which I think is quite funny when you think of football, that you've got 22 lads that are all chasing one ball. It's kind of a funny concept, and yeah, I love that game. But it's getting out there and as you said, like all the things that you can do that help us make better choices, but also energetically kind of clear some of the distractions. I think spot on.
I think most of us know that. I know this, but I still fall victim to thinking I can think my way out of my problems. So even though I know climbing Snowdon might be a good thing for me, when I'm in the shit, it's the very, very last thing I'll often think about doing, because I just want to solve the problem. I want to sit there and think about how my life needs to work out and how I need to plan a 36-year goal and have my purpose all aligned on paper. And sometimes, sitting with a pen and paper is not always the best way to do it. And doing the things that you probably wouldn't relate, like I say, just going out, like exercising, or taking a step back. I think we can get so stuck in our own heads, man, and we don't know we're stuck in our own heads. That's the danger. And it's only when you step out do you think, oh, I was stuck in my own head. Do you know what I mean? And this is me speaking, who's done years of self-development. I still have to teach, coach myself, talk to myself. So it's a never-ending game. It's there's no end line, is there? It's development for life, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's then the call, when you need to surround yourself with a good community of people that can, because we all get stuck, and sometimes we all get in our own way, and sometimes we need people to call us out or remind us of who we are. I remember when I went through my divorce, my best friend James, he reminded me at my lowest point of who Mark Sephton really was, because I kind of lost it, because I was just broke, and I was overcome with grief and disappointment, and what the heck am I going to do? And how am I going to recover from this? And let alone what everybody else thinks, and all those things that come with it. He reminded me of the man that I was. He's like, if anybody can work through this, it's you. When I needed it, because I'm normally that guy to other people. I love being an advocate. I love challenging people. I love calling people to who they are. But when I needed it, he was there, and he was like, Matt, this is who you are. And I identify with it, that when the chips were down, he were there. And I love that guy for it. And when I think of writing a book or achieving something, people look at this book and they think, goodness, I don't even have time to blow my nose, let alone, write a book. And they become overwhelmed. And really, if you think of it, a book is made up of chapters. A chapter is made up of pages, and a page is made up of words. So if you just focus on writing a few words every day, if you do that every day, then you'll have a page, then you'll have a chapter, then you'll have a book. And it's the same in life. I think what we do today is really important, because that does have an impact on tomorrow and next week. So I always say, don't run away with the spoon. Really focus on the present, now, of what you can do now. It does have an effect on tomorrow. I think it was Robin Sharma who says, our days are our life in miniature. So let's just say we could fast forward to the end of our last days on Earth, and we were to shine the light on, what is it, January, is it 26th?
I believe so, 25th, 26th, yeah.
Yeah. So if we shine the camera or the microscope on that, we would be able to see that today does have an impact on that final day we breathed, you know.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
It definitely does. You're right. I mean, what is a good life? Well, you could, like you've just broken down the chapters of the book, it's like, well, a good life could be a series of what? Good years, good months, good days, good hours. And like you're saying, the control within us is on now. Like, we can just make this moment okay. It's very hard to live like that, though. And this is where the argument of, like, does planning into the future take you away from that? But I guess it's that fine balance. You need some direction in your life, don't you? I mean, this is probably what we teach, right? You need something to focus on. I guess you need something to determine how you're going to behave. So if I, like, knowing what you stand for, that has to be at the forefront of anything. Before any goal, I think that's really important. So I think if any guys listen to this and you don't know what you stand for, I'd suggest you get that clear. I mean, I think you might disagree here, but I think most men, if they ask the right questions, know what they stand for. They might not live it, but they know what they stand for, potentially. And then I think your goal should hopefully and align with what you stand for. So it encourages that behavior to achieve your goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I call it the Lighthouse. I ask people to focus on their lighthouse. What is, like, the beacon and the point of reference to all that you do and all that you are? You know, so for me being here today and humbly accepting your invite to come on the Better Man podcast, the reason why I was like, yes, I absolutely want to do this is because fundamentally my lighthouse is to impart and impact and educate and inspire and pour into. And if I can get inside one person's head, then I'm doing that which I believe I wanted to do. So for me, decisions like this become much easier because I've already identified what my lighthouse is. And for me, that's really important.
Sure.
So as soon as you get that clear, actually decision-making becomes much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Which means I'm able to say no to the things that don't take me to that. And if they do, then I commit to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes total sense. This is why it's easier to make the right nutritional decisions, decisions about alcohol consumption, if you know what you stand for and where you want to go, right? If you don't, like you say, everything becomes negotiation. Shall I, shan't I? And I always believe life is a lot easier if you make it simple. So if you can eliminate decisions, or most of them. So for day-to-day, Mark, I don't want to be deciding what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to drink, when, all this. I just want to nail the important stuff, you know, the big stuff. I want the little stuff to take care of itself. But to do that, I need to know, what I'm about and what I stand for and what's important to me, because my health and fitness is very important. So that means, nutrition's taken care of then. You don't need to decide whether you're going to eat the donut or not, because you're not eating the donut today, Alex. Do you know what I mean? Little things like that allow me for bigger picture thinking, and it gives me energy. So I see energy as a source of we can run out of energy. It's finite. So I want to spend it wisely. My decision making, my bandwidth. I don't want to spend it all on small decisions because it weakens me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love the impulsive. I love the spontaneous, because that's an expression of life, not having it all figured out.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of love to kind of like have like a skin of what I want to achieve, but then I love the fluidity. So it might be, let's just say, Alex, me and you are going to go to Barcelona, right? So that's all booked. But in terms of what we do in Barcelona, I'm happy to be fluid, spontaneous, impulsive. So that's very much how I live. I kind of like, I make the decision of I'm going to go to Barcelona, but I don't need to detail in great, precision what we're going to do there.
Sure.
And that's typically how I live, is like, I'm going to do this, but how it looks and how I get there, I'm open for it to be impulsive, it's spontaneous, it's fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's definitely times in my year that will happen. I find sometimes my impulsive behaviours get the better of me. And so when you're talking about Barcelona with no plan, my instant thoughts are, let's get on the sesh. Let's have some beers. And you're right, let's, kind of, I guess, rebel against the disciplinarian that I am in the mainstream of my life. But I quite like that. It doesn't feel wrong. It feels good to be able to be disciplined, be in good shape, be in a financial position to go and do those things and not have too much guilt linger over them. I did the post this morning about gratitude. I am grateful for the moments where I can have my beers and be more of a lad, because I've worked hard to do that, and I sacrifice that a lot of the time. If I was out booze, if we went to Barcelona every week of the year and got on the sesh, eventually it'd just be a habit. It wouldn't be something spontaneous or grateful. So I'm like, I kind of like the impulsive living, but I have to personally control it. You might be in a different stage to me. I'm still a bit of a cheeky chap, naughty boy at heart. Do you know what I mean? I could cause some trouble in Barcelona with no plan. But have a good fucking time doing it.
Yeah, I'm probably more like a choir boy, I think, on that.
Oh, mate, yeah, you don't want to come to Barcelona with me, though.
No, but that's okay. Like, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you talk about discipline, sometimes it does give us the ability to choose to know when to relax. Because obviously, you know, I've really been getting into my fitness a lot in the last, 8 months, and I've really seen the benefit mentally and physically. And there's certain things that I do now because I know that I can give myself the permission to have something that typically I was eating a lot of that wasn't necessarily helping me. And I think when you're empowered, because I think anything that you're a slave of, you need to wage war against. So anything that's got control of you, you need to serve it notice, right? So there's things in my life that I'm like, that I'm still a prisoner to that. That needs to shift, because I need to master that, because I don't want anything to have dominion over me. It's only what we allow that can have dominion. So for me, it's like, you know, when you kind of realign things and take back ownership, you know, it used to be, actually, Mark, you shouldn't be eating donuts because your blood sugar level's too high, you know. And now it's like, you know, now my blood sugar's good. If I want a donut, then I feel like I can do that, because I've now created a lifestyle that enables me to choose that, should I wish to.
That's the difference, Mark.
Exactly.
You want it and you're choosing to eat it. I think the dangerous state is in when that donut controls me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just couldn't say no. You know, you're fucked, basically.
Yeah.
You're right. It's more, and this starts with awareness and not bullshitting yourself. You'll know whether you're choosing that thing or whether you just give in to the temptation. So you're right. This Saturday, I don't know what I'm going to eat, but I'm going to have something dirty. It's going to be some filthy pizza, but I'll decide, because, you know, I've worked my ass off all week. I'm in good shape. It's not of detriment to my goals. It's not of detriment to my mental health. I'm going to enjoy it. It will be a luxury. It will be a pleasure, and I'm going to choose what I have, not the other way around. Do you know what I mean? It's a nice position to be in, but that took me a long time to get to that point. I used to be a serial binge eater, like terrible, to the point where I was going to be sick.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I used to be shredded. And they say a lot of people who are in the fitness game have eating disorders, you know,
Okay.
bodybuilders, fitness models, that kind of thing, because they're so stringent. They're so stringent, and then whenever the opportunity is there to eat, they take it. But again, mate, I don't know if you know much about the fitness world, but it can be quite damaging, because a lot of the pictures that you see on people's Instagrams and stuff, a lot of people will get in shape, like really good shape, and then take shitloads of pictures that will last 6 months, 12 months for Instagram feed. In the meantime, they're getting fat and out of condition, you know, just binge eating because they can't control. But it looks like they're in shape all year round. But it's a real dangerous pitfall to fall into, where you get, you know, 3 or 4 stone of fat on you, then you get shredded, then you get 3 or 4 stone of fat on you, because it encourages distorted eating patterns. Yeah, and you're just, boom, walloping the food down. It's, it's that lack of control.
Yeah, and it's also, obviously, we're trying to fit in, we're trying to be approved by society and make other people happy, but we're rotting inside.
Sure.
That's why we have to be honest with ourselves and sit with self and say, you know, am I happy with how I feel and how I look and what I'm doing? Because, like, April last year, I was diagnosed with diabetes, which was fundamentally what stirred me to take action, and literally, you know, I talked about how you have to commit and make a decision first mentally. I said to my doctor, I'll reverse this in 3 months. I was, for one day, Alex, when I heard that I was diabetic, I was really down on myself, because nobody else is responsible for type 2 diabetes but you, because it's lifestyle, right? That's up to me, what I put in my mouth, and how active I am. And the only way that I could actually commit and shift that is by reminding myself that the man that got me into a place of being diabetes, Mark Sephton, is the exact man who can reverse diabetes, which is what I did. I did it in 3 months. Changed the way that I ate, changed what I drank, ramped up my exercise, didn't compromise. Like, my kids all had birthdays. I didn't have a single piece of birthday cake. I remember going, they all wanted McDonald's. McDonald's actually gave us extra food. I didn't eat it. Like, I just left it. Like that's unheard of, like, for me.
Sure.
But I committed because I was serious about it. And you have to make a decision, and you have to go all in. You can't play half-assed,
I agree, man.
achieve something.
Yeah, I agree. I think we overplay the getting in shape thing. I think it's actually much easier than most people make out. I think if you step back and really have a look at how lucky we are to be able to consume the foods that we do, and think that there will be some kids and adults that never get to enjoy a tasty meal like we do. Like, the idea of sacrificing junk food for 3 months, personally, I think, like I say, perspective-wise, it's not that big of a deal. Like, we've had so much luxury in our life. I've had so many beers over the years, so many cakes, so many pizzas, that if you said, Alex, you can't have it for 3 months, I don't think I've got any right to complain. And again, a bit like the gratitude thing, when they say, Mark, you've got diabetes, it's like you become more grateful for your new body and new health because of that. You know what I mean? And because of the sacrifice. So the donut as well, it tastes nicer because you haven't fucking had a donut for 3 months. But I think people get into the point where they're having a donut every day, and then that is no longer a reward. So they go, right, I need a donut and I need a glass of wine. Do you know what I mean? And then the glass of wine and the donut is like, I need that, and then I'll have a treat night. It's like, oh, that was a fucking treat.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And we lose perspective of what luxury is. And this is why I'm a stickler for, like, I like hard times. I like actively doing things that suck, like working out hard, climbing up a mountain, taking a cold shower. Because, like I said, the warm shower then is like, oh, this is bliss. Otherwise, yeah, you're just that guy who takes like everything for granted.
Yeah, the power of contrast.
I've only just discovered this. I've been doing it for a long time, but I didn't know that I was doing it. So I'm like, why do I like things to suck? And I'm like, well, one, I become more resilient, and two, I appreciate what I've got. So Mark Wood, the explorer, 60 days at the South Pole. He's like, Alex, you come home after 60 days on ice, that warm bed, that sofa, that log fire. Wow, it's beautiful. I'm like, that's a good lesson, that you can look across your life and go, well, where can I appreciate things more in my life by maybe sacrificing a bit more? Because how often do people die in our life, and then we go, I wish I'd have spent more time with them. I wish I'd have treated them better. I wish I'd have made more of an effort. And it's like, well, okay, step away from those people for a week.
Yeah.
Miss them. Don't take them for granted.
Yeah. We're all after a feeling, whether it's belonging, whether it's peace, whatever it is, we're all after a feeling as human beings. And I think a good question to ask that I've kind of been asking myself, like, recently is, what's more important to me, to be comfortable or to be happy? And we should all ask ourselves that question. For me, it's, I want to be happy, which means I'm willing to be uncomfortable in order to be happy, but I'm not willing to be comfortable and unhappy. We hear about how we grow in the areas of discomfort. I love, again, John Maxwell. I don't know if you've heard of the law of the rubber band. Have you heard about that?
No, you'll have to remind me if I have. I've forgotten.
So the law of the rubber band, I love it, because a rubber band only comes into its own when it's under stress, when it's got tension.
Sure.
Right, because if it's floppy, if it's big, if its circumference is obviously bigger than that which it's holding, it's going to be no value. But obviously, if it's overstretched, it'll snap, and having a broken elastic band on your finger does really hurt. But so it needs some tension in order for it to work, and I think that's really important that we remember that, because you're talking about actually you like when things are a little stretched and a little there's tension there, and it's a little bit uncomfortable, but actually that's when it actually comes into its own and its fullness, but not too much, because it will break and then it will cause pain to you and other people. So I think that's really fascinating, that you have identified that your pain has become your power, which is a bit of a cliche, but I believe it. It's true, and I think that's probably why you really identify with the fact that you like when it hurts and you like when it's uncomfortable, because actually it does make you stronger. You get to know who you are more, and you're more a redefined Alex. You know?
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, my experience in growing up being so fearful, I'm like, I've got proof firsthand that a comfortable, safe life led me to a miserable life, and an uncomfortable life led me to a more fulfilled. I'm not quite sure what happy means. I don't get that word. When people say, I just want to be happy, I'm like, well, do you find happiness in Netflix? Potentially, because in the moment, you know, you give me my pizza and my Netflix, Mark, I'm pretty fucking content. And I don't like that word either. Content. I'm like, there's a sweet spot between it all. I'm not saying you shouldn't want to feel content in the world, or happy, of course. Right? We want everyone to be happy, but I think behind that word is an element of sacrifice, hard work, discipline. So, I mean, can you name me an area of your life that you're happy in that hasn't required you to be disciplined? I can't. So I'm happy with my physique and my health because I'm so fucking disciplined in those areas. So the word discipline to me is a healthy word. It's a good word. When I say discipline to most, they think, oh, fuck, sacrifice, fucking, you know, torture. You know, they have this image of, punishment. That's the word I was looking for. You know, they think of the military sense of like someone screaming at you to get out of your bed at 6 a.m. And I don't see discipline like that. Just like discomfort. I don't hear that and think, oh no. I'm thinking, yeah, let's fucking go.
That makes you dangerous, like in a good way.
It's made me a nicer person, a better person. I'm kinder now than I've ever been, but I'm also tougher than I've ever been. But I think that allows me to be kind as well. Yeah. You know, this is that whole cliche of like, we don't want weak men in the world because they're resentful and they're not strong and they're no real good. And I get that. It sounds harsh language. And I mean it in the nicest way. I think we do need stronger men that can step up and work on themselves to become better individuals. Because, yeah, you know, you've got kids, right? Like, how can you raise good children if you're not working on yourself? You just can't. So I can see very clearly how what you do has an impact on the world. Not just you and your kids, on the world. You know, the difference between you raising a strong boy and a not strong boy is, wow, it's life-changing for so many people, isn't it?
It is.
So many people.
And when I said dangerous, just because I want to quantify that, is when you're not afraid of pain or of difficulty or discomfort.
Sure.
That makes you dangerous because there's no stopping you. And I mean it in a good way.
Sure. You actively search for it. In fact, like when your life's too comfortable, you think something's wrong here. I'm not growing. I'm not developing. Yeah. And I kind of can see ahead of the discomfort and know that there's good to come. It's a bit like having the ability to avoid the donut because you know you're going to lose 3 stone. Yeah. I mean, I guess in essence, that's what discipline is, right? You sacrifice that short-term gratification. Yeah. And you jump past that for the bigger picture thinking. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I like that word, dangerous. I think it's a cool word. Fucking take that all day. What else you got to say? Come on, big me up.
No, I was just thinking about, like, one of my most watched YouTube videos is called How to Give Birth.
Okay.
Right. Which is quite funny. I would almost like to say I was a bit of a marketing genius on this one, but I wasn't. Though where I was going with it was bang on the money. But if you type in how to give birth on YouTube, it's quite funny because you literally got women in like there's like thumbnails of women in pain, right? And then you actually have one of me, which right. So people click on it and think, what's this idiot who thinks that he can talk about giving birth? Uh-huh. But I use the metaphor and the analogy that we all carry a dream or an idea or a passion in our heart, but we actually need the tension, we need the pain, we need the transition to be able to birth what's within us out. So, you know, we're talking about those moments of discomfort and those moments of pain and challenge. Actually, you need that in order to get what's in you out of you.
It's a great story. I mean, if you think what a woman goes through in pregnancy for 9 months and then birth, all of that pain, discomfort, sacrifice for this beautiful gift, right? Yeah. I mean, what a story, what an analogy of like, that's how everything should be. Yeah. And I guess that's what I'm saying. It's like you go through that shit because you know there's going to be something beautiful at the end of it.
Exactly.
I think the danger is, Mark, if you don't know where that beauty is, or you can't see where that beauty is, you don't want to go through the discomfort. You want you just want the comfort. So it's probably important that guys have some form of goal or mission or purpose, or knowing what they stand for, or something to work towards. But again, it's a bit hypocritical because I'm saying, you know, just live in the moment. But actually, I'm like, no, you need to know why you're going through this discomfort, even if it is just I want to build a stronger, more resilient mindset. But I think a lot of guys don't really have that pull to do the work. It's like, well, I'm gonna die. You know, I'm 40. It's too late now. What's going to be different now? And it's a hard category of guy to tap into, because like with the diabetes thing, you know, if you hadn't have got diabetes, you might have still been eating shit.
Correct, I would have.
Yeah.
100%.
Same for me. If I didn't have a breakdown at 28, I wouldn't be doing this. So I think, I don't know the answer to this, so I'd love your input on it, but how do we encourage people to change before things get to that point where you've got diabetes?
Well, that is difficult, because I think that it was easy for me to reverse it, because when your why becomes bigger than the how, then you just get it done. Because they'll say to me, Mark, we've got loads of patients that have got diabetes and none of them are driven or care enough. They'll just take the tablets and carry on eating the crap, you know, and carry on not exercising, because we just give them a tablet. But it fundamentally...
So is this a society issue then? Like, I know we're all, you know, me and you are both on the same page about personal responsibility. Yeah. But do you think we need to hand ownership back to the individual and go, yeah, you've got type 2 diabetes, and do you know what can correct this? Nutrition and exercise. See you in 6 months.
Yeah, there is massively like a society issue, because if you just think of how society is built, the fact that we go to school, we go to uni, we get a bunch of debt, and then we get a job and we work till we're 70, our body's knackered, and it's almost like we're on a conveyor belt. So it's like people are so used to things being handed to them. It's like everything is convenient, isn't it? Like online banking, and you know, you can order everything on Amazon and it's at your door. You don't even have to leave your home. You didn't have to leave your home ever again if you didn't want to. You'd get food, you'd get drink.
Yeah, it's been proven now you can live without stepping outside your house.
Yeah,
you can find a woman online, man.
Exactly.
Serious, you can get,
no, I believe you.
Yeah, you can get everything. I mean, you swipe right and you've got a girlfriend, right? Yeah, Costa now to deliver tea.
Yeah.
Foods, everything you need. But this was one of the arguments. It's like life is quite boring now, in the sense that you don't have to do anything to survive. So your desire to get out and get after it and build a life is almost kind of taken care of.
Yeah.
To a certain degree.
Yeah.
You know, once you hit a threshold, let's just say you're working 9 to 5, you get 25 grand a year and you can get by. Once that's covered, it's like, oh, I've got everything I need. So the argument is, well, how you know, is reward the thing that we chase then? Instead of waiting for pain to come along, do we try and tap into the reward system? That's never worked for me. I'm more of a pain-driven person, so wait until things are really bad. You would wait until diabetes come and got you, so you were driven by pain too. It's like, well, how can we convert that? Or is this something innate within us that we're just, driven by pain, driven to get out of suffering?
Yeah, I think, for me, like I was on that case, I was reactive rather than proactive, and we talk about prevention being better than cure. Uh-huh. In most cases, I'd say that I do set the initiative, but there is always going to be something that just whacks you around the head. And I guess, I kind of got away with eating what I liked for 40 years until my body said, not anymore. And then you have a choice, and your question is a good one about, how do we actually like kind of live a life that actually, rather than us waiting for a problem to occur, we're having a life of prevention rather than cure, which I think is a real good question to ask. And I think, you were talking about how, we can survive now without leaving the home. And it's almost like, I don't want to play small. So I don't identify with survive, because for me, that's like relegation for me. Like, yeah. I'm up at the top end. It's not because I have a massive ego. I just know that the further that I succeed, like the happier I am within myself, because we've all been given a set of skills, a community, a neighborhood that will either affect and contribute or will take and will diminish. And so for me, it's you got to have that consciousness, but where does that start? I think sometimes it does start through loss, and it does start through pain, because I think once you have a taste of when things are down, the thing is when you hit rock bottom, the only way is up, like, because you've got nowhere else to go, and sometimes we all have to reach that in order to kind of get fresh perspective. But it is a good question in terms of how do we make society like wake up, because it is almost like sleepwalking through life.
Yeah, well, my instant thought is to become tougher. It sounds cruel and cold, but I think it's for the goodness of everybody. So it's like the word prevention. Again, it's not a very exciting word, is it? Just like survival isn't. It's, you know, it's not. They're not words that are going to encourage us to be our best, I don't think. So I think there's that. I think how you are brought up plays a big role. So I think, you know, I don't know about you, I was brought up in a, you know, just a normal home where striving was never spoken about. It was more about survival and paying your bills. So I had that mindset until I was like 22. Like, as long as I can pay my bills. So I worked at Tesco for 5 years, you know, but I could pay my bills. So everything was okay to that point. So I think an element of how we're brought up and the values that are installed in this are important. Because some kids nowadays are go-getters, and you'll have a look at their parents, they're go-getters too. Do you know what I mean? Or the opposite is true, where the parents do fuck all, and then the kid becomes a go-getter because they don't want to be like their parents. So they always say, don't they, you'll either follow in your parents' footsteps or you do everything you can to not follow in their footsteps. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's an interesting thing, because I hate the thought of people having to suffer so much before they change. But I'm not sure whether there's any other way of learning, and whether we are brave and courageous enough to say you are going to go and have to suffer in order to learn the lessons to improve your life. But as a society, maybe we can speed that up by saying, type 2 diabetic, sorry, this medication is not available for another 2 years. Yeah, until you've tried your best to eat well and exercise. Whew, it's a big step.
I like it though, because I mean, we've already identified, like, as much as, you know, I praise like the medical staff, I have huge respect for doctors, nurses, because I really don't like the hospital environment at all. So anybody who does something that I just wouldn't enjoy, they have my utmost respect. But I do think too quick to give a pill, too quick to solve. There's no responsibility. You have to be like I was. Mark Sephton is the reason why you're diabetic. Nobody else. That's nobody else's bag but mine. Yeah. So therefore, Mark Sephton's the one who's got to make this better. I have to. Like, and you're right. It would be fascinating for a doctor to say you're not going to get metformin. You're going to work your tits off, and literally you're going to do what you need to do because you're worth it. And then I think a lot of it does come down to self-worth, like, and actually, again, impact. You know, I want to have grandchildren. I want to be strong and fit for my kids and for their children. You know, and we only get one shot at this life. None of us know when our time is up. So I better be doing the things that I love, and better be doing the things that I feel are going to have greater contribution. Because I do think about, you know, when I draw this last breath, what are people actually going to say about Mark Sephton? I do think about it. I live out of that. Like, I'm conscious about it. You know, as much as I'm not so much about, you know, people pleasing, I do want to be true to myself. And in being true to myself, I will make relationships and friendships and have an impact. But for me, I'm really focused on that, Alex. Like, to have. You're
a rare breed, though, Mark.
You think?
I know.
He knows. Alex knows everything.
Well, I know, because you only have to look around, dude. It's. I think they'd be outraged if doctors said, "Yeah, we're not giving you your medicine," because people are entitled. Yeah, you know what I mean. But this is, you know, everything we've covered so far kind of points to the fact that people need to go down a tough path to learn the lessons, and I think the pill is trying to eliminate that tough path. And it's trying to fix something instantly. And I'm like, in the short term, yes, you might feel like you're helping that person, or the person taking the pill for the diabetes might feel like it's helping them. But I mean, you probably both know long term, actually, it would be much better for you and everyone around you if you got yourself fit, active, healthy. But people do not want to think like that, because it would mean you have to go and do the fucking work. And people don't want to do the work, man. And I get it. It's like, I kind of get it, because I'm like, well, you don't have to do the work. No. If you had to, you would. But you don't have to. You can take this pill. So I'm kind of like, yeah, I get it. That could have been me. I could have not stepped up when I was a young lad and not being judgmental. I could have been exactly the same. easily.
I think, everybody gets to choose.
Do they? Do you think people do?
What I mean by that is everybody gets to choose how they live their life. You get to choose whether to take the pill or whether to do the hard yards. That's what I mean. So all I'm saying is that there's going to be some people out there that are living on the dole, that aren't doing anything and are happy. And if they're happy, because for me it's like, the question is are you happy? And I know that you are like, I don't know what happy is, and I can talk a little bit about happy, because I think one of the best articles that I ever wrote was about the difference between happiness and joy, and it got picked up by Atlanta Business TV, and it's probably one of my best pieces of content, where I talk about how the main difference is that joy is based on facts. So for example, my children love me, so even if I rip my hamstring and I'm in pain and I'm not happy, I can still be joyful because it doesn't change the fact that my kids love me. So joy is based on facts, right? Whereas happiness is based on feelings, in terms of this is how I see the difference. And I think definition of words is really important, because like we've already said, what success may look like to you may look different to me, and happiness may look different. And even the word happiness may look different. But for me, happiness, based on how I feel, like that's for me what happiness is how do I feel. And if I'm being true to myself, then I will have a feeling of happiness. Right now I'm happy. I'm talking to you about something that I love, something that I'm passionate about. I'm warm, I'm comfortable, I feel good, I feel like I'm contributing. I'm living out of self, living out of my skill set, out of the very essence of who I am. So I'm happy. And for me, I think the choice of you deciding is really down to you, but I do think there needs to be an awakening, and sometimes those challenges we talk about is what awakens people. Whereas I'm quite conscious and kind of mindful of where I'm doing well and actually where I need to keep up leveling.
Yeah, I think people confuse happiness with comfort though. So the 4-stone person who's overweight is not going to be happy if their doctor doesn't give them the pill. One, physical exercise hurts, and it's not always pleasant, and 2, it means you're going to have to go and do something about it yourself. I think that would make a lot of people miserable in the short term. So this is my problem with the word happy. We want all individuals to be happy. Okay, well, here's the pill then. Carry on taking the money, carry on living the lifestyle that you live in. If it means you're content, which you probably are right now, and you're happy doing that, you go for it. This is where the challenge would be. Is society tough enough to go, nah, that's not how we play the game anymore. This is how we play it, and it's going to make a lot of people unhappy. But in 30 years, it might have a real positive payoff for you and your children. It's like, are we ever going to reach that level where we're brave enough to make those big decisions? Or do we keep kind of, going straight to the cure?
But society is programmed to follow a directive. So it's like, when they put the gas prices up, there was unhappiness, and there was... there was, what do you call it? When they...
What, the protests?
Yeah, thank you. Protest. When they protest, there was unhappiness, but eventually, it calmed down. We paid the prices, because we tend to follow a directive unless we really feel like we're being victimized.
Yeah.
But if everybody is not being offered the pill for controlling blood sugar, and of course there's going to be different situations where actually you're at a critical level where you need that even just to kind of get a control of. But I think that that's where I feel like maybe we wouldn't be so unhappy, but I do think it needs leadership at the top end to say we're going to shift this for the good of society.
And I would question the integrity of our modern day leaders for sure. The thing with the electricity thing is, though, me and you had no personal responsibility on that. So the electricity that we're paying is out of our hands almost. We have to pay the bills. Yeah. So does everybody else.
Yeah.
For the majority of cases such as obesity, well, all of them actually, it is on the individual, and the individual can do something about it. Correct. So I think there's slightly different rules would apply. And of course, there's always times where people will need support in medication, of course. But like you say, it's an individual case. But if there's an opportunity for an individual to maybe go away and work on themselves to improve, I think that would create a better society and a better world. There was something in your book actually. I mean, that there was loads. I mean, your book is, I think it's like 30 odd chapters. It's like you could read each chapter, couldn't you, and just digest that for the day.
Yeah.
And there's lessons in there. There's advice, and there's kind of, you give your point of view.
Yeah.
Too, which is really cool, because a lot of people hold back on that in books, and they kind of say what I think people want to hear, but you're brave enough to speak about the difference between men and women and all sorts of things, which again, for some fucked up reason, people don't want to hear. So that was cool. But there was one thing I wanted to ask you about, which I really wanted to kind of challenge you and push you on a little bit, because it's something. But I thought I'll bring up the topic so that we can debate it first, because I might have got it wrong. You talk about how guys should express their feelings more and tap into that and be more aware of their emotions, and perhaps be more emotional. The thing that troubles me on that one is that I know that if I've ever got into trouble in my life, it's because I've been too emotional, or it's because I've let my feelings dictate my actions. So I've now reached this page where I try and be more logical than feeling based. But it's difficult as well, because I don't want to be a guy who's not in touch with his feelings, and I don't want to be a guy who's not emotional. So it's like spinning all these plates, because there's examples where I could give you where, like, getting in good shape, for example, if you go off how you feel, well, like, you ain't going gym, do you know what I mean? And you're going to eat the donut. So it's like, at that point you go, how I feel doesn't matter. I'm going to the fucking gym whether I like it or not. So I'm like, well, there's a good example of, like, ignore your feelings. And I'm thinking, are we encouraging guys to be too emotional now? To be too in touch with their feelings? Is that, when we look around, is that what's going wrong? Is this why people are just going off their rocker and going nuts, protesting left, right and centre, feeling entitled, feeling upset, feeling hurt, and everyone's displaying how they feel? And I'm like, should we be heading that way, or do we need to curve that and go the opposite direction?
It's great question, and I love that it's made you think and then bring that to me. I think that we're all led by certain things. Some of us are led by head. Some of us by heart, and then some of us by gut. Now, I've always thought that if I allow my gut to lead me, and I'd say that I'm led more by heart. I'm more of a feeler than a thinker. I am a thinker, but I think if you were to look, it would probably be like 51% feeler, 49% thinker. Now, I know that when I do what I feel, like intuitively and in my gut, I may make more risks, but actually I'm a lot happier because I feel like I'm being more true to me. So if I'm really, like, affected by something, then I want to be able to show that. Sometimes we need wisdom in how we show it and who we show it to. And maybe I could have quantified more in my book around that. Because, for example, me and my ex-wife, we're very different in terms of our parenting. She won't show much emotion around the kids because she'll identify that mum needs to be strong, and have it together, because she doesn't want to put undue stress or concern on the children, which is beautifully thought out, which is a great reason, which I do value. And then me, there were times during my divorce where I cried in front of my children, and actually that was very different to their mum, and their mum wouldn't do that. But the reason I did it is because we live in a real world, and there is days where it hurts, and I want my children to know and acknowledge that it is safe to be upset, especially when it hurts. Like, emotions are relatable. We all have them. We all have over 3,000 emotions. So really, that's where I'm coming from with that thought, is the fact that I challenge men to not pretend to have it all together, whereas inside they're absolutely broken. And we've got to emotional intelligence does not get taught in schools, which it should. How to deal with heartbreak and grief. These are the things that should be taught in the classroom, not algebra. I've never done algebra in my life, So it's like, this is where I get passionate. It's like, we live in an emotional, like, world. Yeah, I understand what you're saying in terms of if we always get upset and we always vent, especially on social media, it can just be bashing and not productive. But I'm talking about, like, actually the real stuff where if you've lost someone, that should hurt, and you should grieve, and you should be able to grieve, and you should be able to cry, and you should be able to express that with whoever and wherever without fear of judgment, without looking like you're weak. That's really where I'm coming from. So while I'm acknowledging, you know, my own kid's mother in terms of how she is, and I respect that, I think in some ways my kids are blessed because they actually have the two sides of the coin. They have their mother who has, like, not wanting to burden children, which I think is absolutely correct. We shouldn't be kind of using kids as a crutch to deal with. But at the same time, you know, if I'm hurting, actually some of the most healing moments have come through my little girl by her just being her, drawing me a picture. Like, one of the most special things, Alex, for me, when I went through my divorce, and it was like 2 weeks after I left the family home and I was living with my mum. She presented me with a picture. She was 5 at the time, and it was a picture of a bridge. And on the other side of the bridge was flowers. There was the sun. There was water. And on this side of the bridge, there was nothing. And then there was a man on the bridge. And I said to Eva, "Who is the man?" And she said, "That is you, Daddy." I said, "Why have you drawn Daddy on the bridge?" And she said, "To help Daddy get to the other side." Like, holy crap! Like, she knew where I was at, and was able to articulate it in a way that really got me. So I feel like one of the reasons why she's so emotionally in tune is because I've shown my emotion, not in an unstable way. You know, if you're crying over like a movie or something that doesn't require emotion, then yeah, that's not great. But when it's real, then they need examples of that. Children need to know how to grieve, because that's why we get sick and we get depressed, because we have all these emotions of anger and of pain, and we bottle them up, and we don't show people how to express in a safe way. So when I'm saying to men, you need to show emotion, it's because of the impact that it will have in a healthy way. But again, it goes back down to environment, how you do it, and what is it that you're getting like upset about, because there's a time to be upset and there's a time to just hold your nerve. Yeah.
No, well said. I always say on this podcast, if I could have been taught some emotional intelligence when I was young, it would have saved me a world of pain. So what you've just described, I'm totally on board with. You show your emotion, you find strength in it, and you push through. Like, I like that. That's a great example for me. I think where it's been an issue in my life is I'm angry. I don't know how to deal with my emotions, so I'm going to be more emotional. The emotion I'm feeling right now is anger, so fuck you. That's the unhealthy thing that's led me to destroy relationships, to feel hatred, resentment, bitterness, because I don't know how to deal with those emotions. So I'm being emotional, but it's not in a healthy way. It's very unhealthy. So again, it's a fine skill, emotional intelligence, of knowing what's going on inside me. How do I deal with this? How can I react? How can it be a good example to my kids? How can I show them to be emotional but not be controlled by their emotions? It's a fucking hard game. And what you've just kind of said is beautiful. I love it. And you're right. I wish, and it's kind of where I want to head now, to be able to teach men how to deal with these. Because I've seen emotions ruin lives. It's ruined my life to a point. I'm 38 and fucking single, and there's a reason. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like it's gripping. It takes over your body. It makes you behave in a way you don't want to behave if you attach to your emotions sometimes. So the logical part I wish could take over for me and go, oh, Alex, you know, you're feeling angry, but you don't have to be a fucking dick about it. Just calm down. But I go from 0 to 60 in half a second. Yeah. So it's an interesting topic to talk about, and I thought you'd be the man to speak to.
Well, Alex is single, ladies and gentlemen, so send me your CVs.
But I'm a very angry man, and I go from 0 to 60 in a second.
But here's the interesting thing for me, because this is why you need to write a book, right? Because I don't identify with anger, because that's not been my path, right? So interestingly, when you read what I wrote, you then had your own thoughts and your own feelings and your own questions, and I can't answer them because I've not had your experience. But there's men that will need to, because I haven't identified with that, it won't land. Obviously, interestingly, you talk about anger and giving that example, and it would take on a totally different form of what I would encourage.
Oh, sure.
Like in that.
Yeah,
but obviously, sure. I've not had a disposition of anger. It takes a lot for me to kind of get get riled. I'm very like laid back. Like mine's been more like, I just hurt. Like
even through the trauma of divorce, did you never find yourself getting angry at the situation, at your ex-wife, at the way things have worked out, at yourself? Did you never find resentment in there? Like, were you brave enough to wish your ex-wife good luck and wish her on her way?
I think it was there, but I think there was other emotions that were stronger, so it wasn't like something that I identified with that much, because I believe it takes two people to make a relationship, two people to make it not work, and while, you know, one person could be more liable, at the end of the day, like, you're both responsible, you know. So I have my reasons as to why I ended that like marriage, and I have disappointment, but at the same time, none of us planned that. So yeah, it did land differently for me. But this is why, actually, like, you have a book in you that needs to be heard, because you're going to reach, and I really believe that none of us can lead anybody from a place we haven't been before, which is, I guess, why sometimes I get a bit frustrated with, like, say, politicians and even medical professions, like, even especially in the mental health, right? So if a doctor's never been depressed or never had an experience of that, like, how can you like mental coach, administer, like, or even have a conversation with somebody who has? Like, I know that it might not be possible to have doctors that have got bipolar or a mental, you know, illness or whatever that looks like, but I would like to see more of that people are leading in the area in which they've been. You are going to reach men, Alex, that I can't reach, because I've not had your experience, I've not had your pain, I've not had your suffering, which is why your voice matters. And the same for me. There's men I'll reach that you can't, because I've had that experience, you know, and I've been there. And that, for me, is where we all have a responsibility to wake up, to be the best we can be, but also know that our development actually is going to have either a negative or a positive impact on those around us. You know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. What helps me be what I believe a good coach is, I'm very open that I don't know the answers to most things in life. So even this conversation now, I find it fascinating, and I learn best like this, bouncing ideas off someone like yourself that can educate and help me think a different way too. And just you saying, well, I don't feel and experience that, is something that sometimes in my world I can't get my head around, because I think if I feel like that, the whole fucking world must feel like that. If, you know, every guy must get angry, and to hear someone go, oh, I don't really get angry, it's just a good education for me. And again, that's my own little world and ignorance, but like, just to hear that from you is cool, because like I say, when I read your book, I'm like, what do you mean? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not my way of doing things. So for you to just say that and remind me is really, really cool. But I met a clinical psychologist yesterday, and I was talking to her about your book, actually, and saying, I've just read this book and I'm meeting you today. And I asked her the question too. I was like, we talk about these unhealthy emotions, and I said, do you think love can be one too? And she went, well, what do you mean? So I said, well, sometimes it can rule out your logical part of your brain, right? So, and then we went on to have this discussion how you can love somebody but not like them. But because you love them, you stay with them and you do things that you would do because that feeling of love is there. But you know it's not the right person to be with. You know you're not doing the right thing. You know you need to get out. And sometimes, and I've heard this said and people can't get their head around it, you can love the person that you're with, but you do not like them. Isn't that crazy? But I get that. Do you?
Do I get that?
Yeah, because maybe you've been through things together. Maybe you've got kids. Maybe you've shared and you've struggled together and you've formed a bond and there's love there. But after 15 years, you might go, I just do not like this person anymore. Or if we met now, you would not be together.
Yeah, love is so complex, isn't it? And it's got so many faces. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, because I believe that love is the strongest emotion, and actually that's what the world needs more than anything is love. But because we have a skewed idea of what love is, and we all have, again, a different definition of what love is, that then does become like problematic for some as well, because, you know, we often identify with love with like a attachment and with conditions, rather than just, you know, if I give something to you, I don't want anything. I don't need anything back. I'm giving it because I'm acknowledging you and I'm valuing you. It's interesting. Like, what like that's a whole new topic. Like, of what is love?
Well,
Because it's like, wow.
Smart. Yeah,
No, I know.
Yeah, but your book. This is why your book's really good, because it got me thinking about these things. And I think a good book does that for me. If I just put a book down at the end and go, yeah, that was good, but it really got me thinking, and it, you know, it helped me develop questions for today. So I found it fascinating. But yeah, this whole like dive into the emotion or detach to make decisions is fascinating. So it's kind of pulling me, because I can see arguments for both. And what I've found, the more study I do, the more I realise there isn't it's this answer or that answer. It's a combination of both. So there's times where you, dive into some emotion, feel what's going on. And then there's some times where you go, no, that's not going to lead you to a good place. So everything's paradoxical. It's like both answers make sense to me. You should be a guy who can feel, and you should fucking wear your heart on your sleeve. No, you shouldn't. Think logically. And I agree with both at the same time. Both make total sense to me. Neither's right, neither's wrong.
Yeah. It is interesting. I almost feel like if I go logical rather than intuitive, I'm doing that to actually protect myself. And often for me, I can only speak for me, but it will be to please others. I'm not willing to please others if it means I'm unhappy. I think the most important thing is to acknowledge the fact that how you feel matters. So whether you feel angry, whether you feel happy, whatever you feel, that matters. You've got to acknowledge that. And as we said, we have 3,000 emotions. You know, you can feel the whole rainbow of emotions in a day, even in an hour. You can be happy, you can be sad, you can, because it's multifaceted. I think the main thing is acknowledging that how you feel is important, and do not ignore that. That's important. You have to acknowledge, and then you have to look at as to why, and that will send you in. You may need some help, or you need some healing, or there may be some things there that it's kind of like showing you. But there is truth to the fact that yes. If we just wait on how we feel, we'll never do anything. Like as you said, I totally agree with that. If I just run when I feel like it, I'm going to run once a week rather than 4 times a week. So I do believe that when we act, then the feelings come after that. They come on the back end, right? So I totally agree with that. So I think we can kind of maybe jump in and out a little. But for me, it's fundamentally it's that how you feel matters. You know. Be brave to be you. So if you are a person who identifies with wearing the heart on the sleeve, you should always wear your heart on your sleeve. If you're more logical and more considered and measured, and that's you, then be that. For me, that's the most important. Like for me, I have to wear my heart on my sleeve. This is me. You either like me or you don't. You either get what I'm saying or you don't, and that's okay. Because not everybody's here to be learning from me or to like me. Yeah. I'm here to serve those that actually want me to serve.
I think that's a good point, Matt. I think if you want to be more logical, you accept that you might not feel as much, but you might live a safer, less controversial life. Whereas if you're a heart on your sleeve kind of guy, you might accept that it's going to come with its pitfalls.
Absolutely.
People, like you say, people might not fucking like me, and I might fuck up, and I might get a bit passionate and heated. But I think that's the thing, isn't it? You decide, who am I? Going back to what you originally said, what do I stand for? And you clearly stand for being the guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. So it's kind of like that's an important question, because then you can follow that path, and you don't have to have this battle that I'm going through. You can just go, that's my path.
Well, I did a great exercise, which I'd encourage you to do, Alex, and everybody that listens to this, because I was talking to a brand, kind of like personal brand person that I really enjoying and getting to know, and she was like, ask 10 people, 3 words that they associate with you. Well, I didn't ask 10, I asked 100, because I just thought, this is great. I haven't done this in a while. And I had 66 different words that people, and they were all great words.
Associated with you?
Yes. Yeah. So I was like, these 66 words, I did a whole collage, I put it on my wall, because I just really, I love that sort of stuff. This is what people perceive, this is people's truth, this is how. And then I really honed in on what were the words that were repeated more than 15 times, and there's about 5 of them. But I really paid attention to the first 3. 3 were genuine, authentic, and insightful. And they're like words that I'm just thinking, that's me being me, and I love that. Like, if people know that I'm authentic, that I'm genuine, and that I'm insightful, then that is exactly what I want to be. That felt good, And I think that that's important. It's a great exercise. How do people see you? And then with the feedback, are you happy with that? And if you're not, then what do you need to tweak? Do it. It's a fantastic exercise.
What I often find is the things that people find attractive about people at first, especially like in the dating world. So a lot of the comments I get in the relationships I've been in, Alex, I love your passion. But eventually that passion, it becomes sometimes the thing that is the damaging factor too. So it might be heart on my sleeve at the start is attractive, but eventually heart on the sleeve is the thing that gets me in a bit of bother sometimes, because I might say or express how I'm feeling in that present moment, when at some points it might just be best for me and my partner involved if I just learn how to just slow down a little bit and not engage so much. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. It's one of those, but I don't want to be reactive. That's my thing, because reactive does get you in trouble, doesn't it?
Can do.
Yeah.
I love the quote, you can never be enough for someone who can't get enough of you. Now, we can always try and shrink and try and bend and mold into somebody's ideal because we don't want to be rejected. We don't want to have to go through another girl who doesn't validate or see us. The reality is actually when you're you, fully you, if they're not resonating with that, or they get cold feet, they're not for you anyway. So just keep being you. That person who loves you for you, completely you, is there. That's what I would say. Don't shrink. You'll never be too much for somebody who can't get enough. Don't try and dilute yourself. Don't try and curb who you really are. The woman or whatever it is in life is there for you. That's important.
There were references in your book which I wanted to ask you about too, which was kind of really grabbed my interest. When you were going through some of your tougher times in the divorce, and when you felt a bit lost, and I guess when you kind of didn't know who Mark Sephton was, you kind of touch on the word God and faith.
Yep.
Can you just tell me a little bit more about that and how you use faith to get you through some of your most difficult times?
Yeah, and my faith is something that's real to me and personal, and I would even say in the last 6 weeks I've actually felt a need to kind of ask God to heal my union with him, because I think that symptomatic when I went through my divorce, it did affect my relationship with God, and I lost my way, because it does present a lot of questions as to, you do go down that point of why didn't you help with this? Why didn't you prevent this? Why didn't you change this? But again, getting into that blame culture, again, life is all about you taking responsibility, and so when I have talked about God and faith, for me it's something personal. I do talk to God like I'm talking to you, maybe not every day, but I do have conversation, and I've noticed that there has been times over the last 4 years where I haven't tapped into that as much, because I guess there's a sense of not feeling enough, which goes against my whole belief in faith anyway, because it's actually not about works, it's actually about grace, which actually for me, grace is something you can't earn. It's like when somebody gives you a gift, you haven't necessarily earned it, they just want to give it because it's an expression of love or appreciation. So for me, it's when I focus on God, it's because of the fact that sometimes it's reassuring to know you've got somebody who's bigger than you and smarter than you. And I do have personal experience and have had personal encounters with God that aren't cuckoo, that have been real, that I can identify with and put my signature against. But it is something that I believe that, I think when it comes to anything around God, it says at all points share the gospel, and if you must, use words. There's too many people that talk and preach, and people don't want that. They get turned off. They're like, oh, I'm lost interest. Don't talk to me about God. I'm not interested. Most of the people in church are some of the vilest people on the planet. And there is some truth in that as well. When I went through my divorce, some of the most helpful, loving people were people who don't even believe in God, right? So, yeah, people have to accept that, because that's why a lot of people don't identify with God and church, because actually their experience is full of abuse and judgment and all this yuck, which I don't identify with. I hate that stuff. But in terms of those quiet moments when I cry myself to sleep at 2 a.m, and nobody's physically there, yeah, I would call on God, because I identify God as Father fundamentally. So it's easier for me to make that than me identify God as a ruler or as a judge or some kind of like guy with a beard. Like for me, it's been a lot more relational. So yeah, I do tap into that and I do lean on that. And could I lean on that and sharpen that more? Yes. But I think I've identified, I'm asking God to heal my union with him because I feel like that's been severed because of my choice. It says God changes not. But obviously we change, and so it's my own kind of like outworking. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very guilty of calling upon God when I need him, not daily. Yeah, so when I'm lost and don't know where to turn, that's when I'll call upon God. And I always feel guilty after because I'm like, well, I only speak to you when I fucking need something. So I think what you've touched on is really important too. It's maybe developing more of a practice in that and being a little bit more in tune. Because there's something out there. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something bigger than us. That's for sure. Like, I don't think you can deny that now. Whether it's a religious aspect or not, it doesn't matter. It's something bigger than us. You only have to take a look around at the universe to know there's something much bigger than us around. Yeah,
I mean, and I would say that the world has never been so spiritually hungry as it has been now. Like there's so much hunger out there.
But isn't that because of the downfall of religion?
I think so, but again, some of it's about like making sense of life and knowing that it's fragile. I mean, for me, it's like, even though I have a belief in God, it's like, when I saw my grandfather when he died, and I was 18, and I saw his body, I was like, who my grandfather was no longer there. And I don't know, I always think it'd be helpful for people to see a dead body. Yeah, it's not nice. But for me, it's like who my grandfather was. His clothes and his shell, his body was there. But what made my granddad was not there. That spirit, that energy was gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, for me, it's like in life, we're dependent, aren't we? We eat every day, we drink every day, we have to rest every day, which already says that we're designed to be dependent and not independent. We actually need community. We need each other. We're put into everybody's born into a family. Like there's a structure there, and I believe that relationally we relate because there's something more to come after this time on Earth. But because you can't speak to the dead in the sense of once you die, we all have to do that by ourselves, which is quite a sobering thought. I don't overly like that thought, if I'm honest. That I have to go that next step alone because we don't know. And I think the unknown for me is probably the hardest terrain to navigate. Much more kind of know the situation and what I'm working with. That dark area, which again, when we're talking about faith, it is about having a belief in something that we can't see, like oxygen. You can't see oxygen, yet we're breathing every moment. And yet we can't see it. So in some ways, like faith is like that. You may not be able to see God, but it doesn't deny that he's not there because of our experience and the way that I believe that we're an expression of the creation, and we tend to express that which, is a part of us. So this book is an expression of me, and we are an expression of God. Yeah.
I've only seen one person die before, and it was a very similar thing where like my gran took her last breath, but it was this huge, gigantic breath, and it was almost like something was being sucked out of her, and you couldn't see anything, but there was a presence that came out. It was weird, fucking weird. I was only young, but it was almost, like maybe I can use the word soul, but it felt like that, like something that, and like you say, then you're just staring at this thing that used to be your gran, like it's just this body, this lifeless, but it looks completely different.
Yeah,
don't look like your gran anymore.
No,
it's like it's weird. It's like gran's gone.
Yeah,
and there's a body.
Yeah,
with some clothes on. It's crazy. Man.
It is. In fact, when we lost my gran, which was 18 months ago, and maybe longer actually, because time just seemed with COVID, time really is
crazy.
Is skewed.
Yeah.
So it's probably longer. But I remember me and my sister, we were there for her last breath, and then afterwards, about an hour later, we were chatting. We both had the same thought at the same time, and we both said to each other, "It felt like a birth." Because I've had children. She's got children, so she's been experienced through a birth, and I've obviously witnessed the birth. It was like we were birthing our grandma into somewhere else, which I thought was really fascinating, that we both kind of identified that. So even though she was gone, it actually felt that we were delivering her to the next, which I thought was very fascinating.
I can make sense of that too.
Yeah.
Mark, there's one traditional question that I need to ask you next. Firstly, would you be willing to come back on and talk some more?
Absolutely.
Because we've done 90 minutes.
Have we?
And I haven't touched on half of the shit that I was going to touch on. But I've absolutely loved talking with you. The final question is something I ask all the guys and the girls that come on is, what is it that you feel like you need to work on now in your own personal life, business life, more personal, to become a better person, a better man?
Oh, that's a good question. I
save that good question to the end back.
Like I said to you, if something isn't serving me, then I serve it notice. And there's a couple of things. I'm very much very calm, and like I said, if it's on me, I will take responsibility. There's a couple of situations where I feel like I have anxiety. One is actually just with my own health. Like I get anxious about anything medical, and it's not easy sometimes when, say, like the doctor wants to do a scan or wants to do a test, and you're thinking, crikey, what are they looking for? And you sat with that where it could be something or it could be absolutely nothing, and so for me, in terms of like wanting to see improvement and better in myself, is that I kind of just want to be able to have a bit more courage and peace to kind of accept, that sometimes you have to go through things that you don't have full control over, because I'm not a control freak, but I do love to lead and I do love to affect. So the things that I can't affect, and they say that acceptance is a form of dealing with something. But for me, acceptance is my last kind of port of call. I'll do anything to kind of problem solve, find a solution. But sometimes acceptance is the only thing that you have in order to kind of work your way out of something. And sometimes you just have to say, okay, I accept whatever it is. And then I remind myself of all the things that I've overcome, all the things that I've done, and all the dark places. And I'm sure that you can testify to this. If you think of all the things that you've gone through, all that pain, all that suffering, all that heartache, all that anger, all the disillusionment, the betrayal, whatever it is, and yet you're still here, you're still showing up. You've come through it all, and it goes with everybody. Everything we face, we have no choice but to go through. The key is the word through. Not here to stay in it, here to go through it. So even if I have to go through something that I find difficult or I would hate to go through, the key is going through it. And I think it's, that's where I'm really working personally on that. It's those moments where I can't affect, I can't problem solve, I have to accept, and then just holding my nerve and going through it. That would be it for me.
Mate, what a beautiful way to end. Mate, thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
I really fucking enjoyed that conversation.
That's good.
You got to come back.
I will.
Mark, thank you, man.
You're welcome.